pleasant morning to one and all present here. We have gathered today on this auspicious morning to celebrate the World Anthropology Day 2024. The World Anthropology Day was established by the American Anthropological Association in 2015. 2015 to with two ideas. One, to celebrate the discipline of anthropology, and also to share the in-depth anthropological research and the avenues where the anthropology is practiced with others with an aim to inspire. So in this same spirit, the Department of Anthropology, Pondicherry University is very proud to organize this special lecture on the topic how has anthropology an essential role to play in the development of today's world. So now I request Dr. Valerie Dakar, the head Department of Anthropology, to deliver the welcome address.
A very good morning and a warm welcome to all of you. Respected Director, Professor Clement Lourdes, keynote speaker, Professor Claudine, Professor Chandrika, Professor J. Sratnam, Dr. Sharmila, Dr. MT, colleagues, students, scholars, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure to speak to you this morning and to welcome you to the World Anthropology Day, to celebrate the field and share important information about anthropology. As we know, anthropology is a scientific study of the humanity, and it encompasses the biological as well as the social cultural aspects of the human being. Thus, it is also referred to as a holistic study of this human being. This year, we are also celebrating the World Anthropology Day in the light of the vision of Viksit Bharat at 2047, and thus are assembled here to deliberate on the role of anthropology in the development of a nation in particular and the world at large. First and foremost, I cordially welcome our director, Sir, Professor Clement Lourdes, who has kindly consented to grace this occasion despite his busy schedule. Sir has always been very kind and very supportive to us, and it is an honor to have you amongst us, sir, this morning. And I, on behalf of the department, welcome you cordially to this function. It is also my pleasure to extend a hearty welcome to our keynote speaker, Professor Claudine Gauthier, who is an erudite scholar and who has readily accepted our invitation to address us on this momentous day. And I am certain her lecture will immensely enrich us. We welcome you, ma'am. I would also like to extend a very warm welcome to our very senior professor, Professor Chandrika ma'am, who has very kindly and readily accepted to be with us this morning, ma'am. And she has always been very supportive and very kind, especially to young faculty from the social sciences. Thank you, ma'am. I also extend a hearty welcome to Dr. Sharmila Acharif, who is the head of the Department of French, and Dr. MT Renla Lonkuma of the Department of Sociology, and our beloved colleague, Professor J. Suratnam, who is always here with us, and scholars and students from the department and also from outside the department, our EMRC staff, who is always readily available to us whenever we call upon them, and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today, and a very warm welcome to one and all. Before I take my seat, I would like to make a small announcement. The department has come up with a logo and a t-shirt for the very first time. I think you can see the students wearing it. And I should thank my scholars and students who have been very proactive in taking matters into their own hands and coming up with the design and making arrangements for the order and the delivery of these t-shirts. The purpose of anthropology is to make the world safe for human differences by Ruth Benedict is inscribed on these t-shirts. And a special mention, of course, to Giri Murugan, a PhD scholar who has come up with the logo design, of course, with inputs from all of us, and the ever active, energetic second-year students of the department for the t-shirts. I thank you.
Lighting of a lamp, which symbolizes the eternal pursuit of knowledge. Now I'm honored to invite the dignitaries to light the lamp.
Professor Valiyad Dakar, the head of the Department of Anthropology, and Professor Claudine Gaudier, the keynote speaker, our Chandrika Madam, Professor of History, and Professor Sharmila, head of the Department of French, and Professor J.S. Ratnam, research scholars, students and friends, faculty from the other departments too. I am greatly honored, and I consider this to be a great privilege to be here unexpectedly on this auspicious occasion, because only yesterday night I was told about this program. Anyway, this is not my cup of tea, or I am not good at this particular subject. I am very much interested in this, but I have no knowledge about it. And in this big gathering, if you can pick an odd man out, it must be me. But I have a curiosity to learn something from you, and that is why I am here. Our Vice Chancellor, Professor Tarnikar sir, he has got one important engagement, and he should be here, because I think that being a scientist, that he can talk very well about this particular subject. But I am just stepping into his shoes, and I find it too big for me. Another thing, that when the call came from our head of the department, I immediately accepted it for one particular reason, that she is one of the ardent admirer of my arts. Not only that, some of my colleagues in other departments also told me they came to know about my art through her. That is really a very appreciable quality that you find in a colleague. They will just see that, and they will send a message in WhatsApp, or they will send a message in group and keep quiet. But they will not take the trouble of sending it to others. That shows her interest in art and her keen interest in the development art of an individual in her own institution, and speaks volumes about her kindness, generosity, and all those good qualities that go with it. Therefore, I take this occasion to thank her for this singular honor. Usually, when somebody is invited here to be the chairperson or to inaugurate a particular session, that VIP need not a person belonging to your field. In that case, the VIP will be given a small write-up about the subject by the coordinator, and the one who addresses you the next day will simply read it out without knowing the subject. So, fortunately, I haven't got any write-up about this from the coordinator. In that way, I escaped, because reading a particular subject where we have no knowledge, it is just like a kid quoting Shakespeare. Therefore, I dare not venture into this field. But my policy is, if mountain is not coming to Muhammad, Muhammad can always go to the mountain. Therefore, yesterday night I was thinking about, if anthropology deals with the human beings, especially in relation with their culture, with their beliefs, with their religion, with their custom and all that, in what way that it has been connected with the literature. And immediately I had a spark, because one of my favorite writer is none other than Shakespeare himself. And the popularity of Shakespeare, the enduring popularity of Shakespeare, I must say specifically, because Shakespeare lived so many years ago, you all know, 400, 500 years ago. But still, I am teaching Shakespeare. Still, you enjoy reading Shakespeare. What actually gives this enduring popularity to Shakespeare? If you put that question, it is not something very easy to find an answer. Some may attribute it to fate, some say that fortune has been very kind to him, and some would say that it is because of his scholarly style, unmatchable style in English, and that is why he is here still with us. My dear friends, I just want to draw your attention to some of the titles of his plays. You yourself will get an answer why we are celebrating him in this contemporary world, even today. Two Gentlemen of Verona. I again mentioned that word, Verona, name of a country. Okay. Othello. You must have heard about it. Sir, that is the title of one of the important tragedies of Shakespeare. True. But it has got its own subtitle. Othello, the Moor of Venice. Mark that word, Venice. He talks about another country. Antony and Cleopatra is maybe one of your favorite plays. But Antony is a Roman and Cleopatra is an Egyptian pharaoh. Okay. Then you take Pericles. That is the title. But it has got its own subtitle. Prince of Tyre. Tyre. It is the name of a country. Merchant of Venice. Again. Hamlet. You must have heard of it. I need not go on repeating the title. But again it has got its subtitle. Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark. My dear friends, suppose if I ask you what is the enduring popularity of Shakespeare, probably now you must be ready with your answer. It is because of this, not confining himself to one particular country and talking about his customs, manners, beliefs, habits, etc. He takes into consideration what is happening in other countries. He is so curious to know about all these things. As anthropologists, you are also doing the same thing. And he has done it. That is why we now consider him to be the most popular writer, not only of his time, but of our time. And if you ask me, sir, is there anything you say that beliefs, habits and all that? Whether these habits and beliefs in any way, in any form, whether it is mentioned in his play, well, there is a particular passage that I want to draw your attention to, where he talks about the superstitious beliefs of his own fellow human beings. And you may be under the impression that only we people are superstitious. And all our back of beyond village people are superstitious. Suppose in the morning, if a black cat crosses your path, then you have to go and ask your mother for a cup of water. Only after drinking it, you will go to your, institution, college or whatever work that you want to do, because it is an ominous sign. We believe that. But of course, in my house, I have only black cats. That too more than 10 in number. Every time one cat will cross my way, but I am very successful in life so far. The credit goes to the cats, I think. So, go to any lodge. 13 is a very bad number. And if they give you a room numbered 13, you will not go. That is why in many lodges you have 12, 12A, 14. Because if they give 13, you will not go. But sometimes it happens, I am giving you 12A, you will not go, because it is 13 only. Isn't it? So superstitious we are. But I just want to draw one important passage of Shakespeare in Henry VI, Part 3. That is supposed to be a very popular play. it comes under the category history plays of Shakespeare, where a murder for the first time in English literature is taking place in the library. The Duke of Gloucester comes to kill Henry, and Henry knows fully well that he will be killed by Duke of Gloucester, that is the future king, Richard III, one of the criminal monarchs that you have come across in history. And before the killing is taking place, there is a conversation between Henry and Richard. And Henry tells Richard, I know my fate that you are going to kill me, because when you were born into this world, so many bad omens have taken place simultaneously. And because of that, I am cocksure that you have come to the world in order to ruin it, to destroy it. And that is what, after some time, it is going to take place. I am ready for any kind of ordeal. I am ready to die. But the only unfortunate thing that I am going to die in your hands. For that he says, an owl streaks at thy birth, an evil sign. The night crow cried, abounding luckless time. Hideous tempest shook down the trees. Dogs howled. Thy mother felt more than a mother's pain, yet to bring forth this deformed lump, not like the fruit of such a goodly tree. You were born with teeth to signify that you will bite and tear the world like dog. Then immediately he takes his dagger, Richard takes his dagger and stabs Henry. Die in your speech, prophet, I shall hear you no more. And he takes the dagger out. You can see the blood coming out from the dagger. And this cruel man says, how my dagger weeps for the dead king. That means blood is coming out. He says that it is one kind of weeping for the deed the dagger has committed. Okay? So, from the list you can make out how many superstitious beliefs which are still believed in England are categorized by Shakespeare. And not only that, in Julius Caesar dies because he did not listen to a prosophy uttered by a soothsayer. Soothsayer is one kind of a prophet. Actually, Julius Caesar is going in a crowd, and one person warns him, Caesar, beware the Ides of March. It has become an oft-quoted line from Shakespeare. 15th March. Ides of March means 15th March. Be careful about that. On the same day, this great man dies. And immediately he says that somebody is telling something. No, sir, it's a big crowd. And don't simply care for all this kind of utterances. But anyway, it has happened in that way. That shows Shakespeare is so very much particular about the habits, customs and manners of those people, and even he takes into consideration these supernatural beliefs that are prevalent in the society of his time. Not only in the society of his time, but I can go on telling you so many other things. And if you want to know about the study of the humankind in relation with animals, again I can tell you that you should go to the very famous novel. I think if I tell you the title, immediately you will be able to name the author, because it has become such a popular novel. Gulliver's Travels. That is the title. And in Gulliver's Travels, the 4th book, you find the novelist is taking us to the land of horses. And in the land of horses, what are all the experiences that the protagonist is undergoing? That is the subject matter of the novel. That means humankind is studied on par with the animals. But unfortunately, the novelist comes to the conclusion animals are far better than human beings. But he makes a case study of the horses only, but comes to the conclusion that the horses are far better than human beings. And in fact, he goes to make a comment that seems us to think about our own selves, that animal called man. I think what Gandhi said is right. When Gandhi was asked why animals are decreasing in the forest, he said because they are increasing in the city. I think that this would answer some of our questions. And again, to come to the conclusion, again I would like to draw your attention to a very famous poem. It should be considered as a poem only, but you will be reading it as a big prose text. This is Alexander Pope's An Essay on Criticism, and it is one of the world famous books, and in that there is a particular passage that is very relevant to the study of anthropology. He talks about the two great masters of Greek literature. One is Homer, the other one is Virgil. You know that Homer is such a famous writer, but Virgil, even though he happened to be his disciple, he did not read Homer in the beginning. He was a very young student, very enthusiastic, very enterprising, but he did not read Homer. But Virgil had in mind to write a book that would outlast even Roman history. And what is the title of that book? You must be knowing all, the very famous work by Virgil, Aeneid, isn't it? So that is the book that he wrote. And in that book, he thought that this is going to be one of the wonders of the world. For that, he started studying, humankind. Because he knows fully well that unless you study the human beings, unless you get that experience and practice, then your book will not be of no use. That will give you only bookish knowledge and not practical knowledge at all. Therefore, when he was experimenting with so many things, suddenly he came across Homer's books. And he went on reading them and he thought, it is sufficient. Why should I study all these human beings, their behavior, everything is here. My master has written. And therefore, no more study of mankind. Let me confine myself to the books of Homer. That is what he decided. And he also gives us, Homer's books are nothing but the study of mankind. And he comes to the conclusion, that is, Pope comes to the conclusion by saying, the proper study of mankind is man. The proper study of mankind is not any other thing. If you take the humanity into consideration, one man is enough. If you study him, you are studying the whole humanity. And that is where the book is boiling down. Therefore, these are one or two stray thoughts that had occurred in my mind last night, which I wanted to share with you. Thank you for giving this opportunity. And I am as eager as you to listen to our guest speaker. And you will be going to gain a lot from her speech. So, you please be ready with your paper and pencil in hand, and don't simply listen to her without it. And this is going to be a very illuminating kind of talk that would be beneficial for every one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was an illuminating speech, drawing a connection between literature and anthropology, sharing the important message that the curiosity to learn about other culture is what is the reason for the time-tested fame of the great writer Shakespeare. And I believe that is the core of the discipline of anthropology too. And also the proper study of mankind can be done by using a single man, which was very enlightening, sir. Thank you for your great speech. Now I request Professor Jayastratnam Devrapalli to share a few words and also to introduce the guest speaker of this morning.
Very good morning. Respected Director Culture and Cultural Relations, Professor Clement Lodis, our chief guest, Professor Claudine Gouze from University of Bordeaux, one of our senior professors, Professor Chandrika, Professor Shahin Sultana, Professor Sharmila, Dr. Himti, and Ashita. My esteemed colleagues in the department, dear students, research scholars, ladies and gentlemen. Really, this is a great opportunity for people from anthropology and people with anthropological understanding to come together on this specific day, that is World Anthropology Day. And alphabetically, anthropology stands number 1 whenever you write the list of the disciplines. And it's not only for that reason, but anthropology has its very significance, very importance by the very nature of its work or the very content of its analysis, as how Professor Lodis just now narrated, that man is important in understanding himself. And anthropological research, since its emergence, is more committed for the welfare of humanity. Understanding humanity is more important. Understanding their issues, their problems, and understanding the other sides of it is equally important in bringing about the all-round development of human beings. So in that sense, since its inception over 2 centuries, anthropology has been moving forward, reaching newer heights. And today, if you think of anthropology, where is its presence, it is no wonder to say that anthropologists are working everywhere, in every area, not only in human related studies or social sciences. They are working in the fields of development, they are working in the fields of administration, they are working in business sector, they are working in legal support systems, and no subject or discipline can put away anthropologists or anthropology for that reason, because its very method and approach is of such a scientific nature that the analysis we make out of it and the outcomes we give out are very appealing and very helpful for concerned agencies or groups which are using it. So, anthropology, known for its ethnographic studies, as how Professor narrated just now, it looks into the all-round of the day-to-day life of the people, be it the customs, the practices, the livelihoods, or any other aspirations, both material and non-material. are very much become the part and parcel of anthropological analysis, and hence this ethnography really portrays what the people are. And anthropology has also conquered one of the greatest human bias over centuries, that is racism. And people were discriminated based on the skin color, the hair type, and so on and so forth, which are biologically rather inherited and environmentally influenced factors, and this has led to divide the humanity. It has led to great massacre in the world just in the name of race. And anthropology has proved beyond doubt that maybe race is a biological reality, but racism is a myth. It is human created, and therefore it is unscientific to divide the populations on that. And for that reason, when you see the great scientists either in pure sciences or in social sciences were drawn from a particular group which was discriminated on the basis of race and massacred. So anthropology has done a lot of work on this race, and most of the early studies in India are reflecting upon the racial classification of Indian populations. So it is not just 4 races or 3 races which were thought to be the genuine races, but we have more than 16 sub races as well. So all these are myths, because human populations always interact, and let us not build the walls between the human beings. And this is another important thing, understanding others. We appreciate ourselves, but we don't have a proper understanding about the others. This is what ethnocentric perception. And anthropology has given a lot of information as how people misunderstand themselves by narrow constraints. And further, when you speak about anthropology, because this is World Anthropology Day, I have to tell these things. Otherwise, I need not to. And I was also instructed by our HOD to speak something about this. Otherwise, I have no interest also. So, as such, anthropology contribution, understanding the different populations. When you look at Indian society, and in the new education policy, NUP, National Education Policy, NUP, there is one subject called understanding India, understanding ourselves, and anthropology has a lot to tell about it. And Indian population, when you look at it, it is highly diverse population, diverse in languages, diversity in their values, diversity in religions, diversity in food habits. Don't underestimate, food is so important. And under these contexts, there is an ample scope that anthropological knowledge has to be imparted at every level, so that we have an integrated India, a united India. So, as such, anthropology contribution in health services, no one can ignore. Anthropologists are working with people in medicine, and anthropology has brought so many insights from divergent medical ideologies, and supporting or advocating an idea of integrated medical system, where the health of the individual is important rather than the egoistic perceptions of divergent medical fields and areas. So like this, if I have to say, there are many things, but anyway, time is not permitting me. And coming to the other thing, of course, what our HOD requested me, Vikshit Bharat, because our department has not conducted any activity in the name of Vikshit Bharat, though the entire university has done many activities. So, in this respect, when you speak about Vikshit Bharat, the development of a nation depends upon the participation or inclusivity of all the sections of the nation. And in that perspective, I really appreciate the central government taking an initiative in the recent days, asking everyone's views, asking everyone's perceptions as what should be India after another 20 years or so. So in this, you see, we have so many cultures, we have so many tribal populations, we have so many divergent groups, linguistic groups, and we have to move towards an approach that all these sections are taken into consideration. And another important thing is that in the recent ICSSR funding activities, they have introduced one important sub area, that is studies of the culture, history and geography of the scheduled tribes of India. And this is a very great narrative, an initiative where the so-called underprivileged sections or those that are neglected groups, their culture, their habitats, their way of life is given a new look. And in this, even I too got one project, and also Dr. Velry got another project under the same scheme. Of course, I cannot avail it since I am already using another project from the same funding agency, so I cannot use it. So this gives an inclusive perspective that is very much needed. And in this, when you include all these populations, groups, and the tomorrow India will be definitely a shining India. And I actually come back to my original task of introducing the key speaker of the day, Dr. Claudine Gouze, Professor of Anthropology, full Professor of Anthropology at University of Bordeaux. She is researcher at Research Center of Political Anthropology, School of Advanced Studies in Social Sciences. She was also co-responsible for master's degree in anthropology. She is coordinator international relations for the Faculty of Anthropology of University of Bordeaux, former first vice president of the 20th session of French National Council of Universities. Currently, she is committee member of Belgian National Scientific Research Fund, and she has varied interests in her research endeavors, particularly anthropology of religion, history of sciences, cultural heritage studies. These are some of her interesting areas. Of course, I found that she has published 6 important books, 34 research papers, and her latest book, Thinking About the End of the World, in 2014, is one of her important contributions. We are really lucky to have her in our midst today. Actually, she is visiting India for some other purpose, and before coming India, she contacted us because our university and their university have an MOU, and from that angle, she want to collaborate with us when she visit our country during these days, and luckily she is here today. So we are very glad that she will throw some light upon the contributions of anthropology to this world. Thank you.
Now, without further await, I invite Dr. Claudine Gauchier to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you so much for this invitation, really. First, I must say how much I feel honored for having been invited to speak at the University of Pondicherry for celebrating the World Anthropology Day. And I must address deep thanks to Professor Clement Lourdes, Professor Mohanty, Dr. Valerie Carr, Professor Devarapalli, Dr. Gururaj Gundagi, and also to all the scholars and students of the Department of Anthropology for hosting me today. As you know, a MOU was signed recently between my home institution, the University of Bordeaux, and the University of Pondicherry. And I do hope that this first common event will be the start of a fruitful and long-lasting cooperation between our both institutions. Anthropology is my scientific field since several decades now, and when a long time ago I decided to study anthropology, it was because I had the feeling it was the most important knowledge amongst human sciences. And I still feel the same today. But as anthropology is a quite young human science, its purpose and social role are still not very well known beyond the academic circles, that is to say, amongst the population. Further, in Europe, anthropology suffers of a lack of awareness based on a common faulty representation of science dedicated to the study of pre-literate societies. Consequently, most Europeans will ordinarily and wrongly consider that anthropology has no role to play today. Especially, people will raise the question of the professionalization of students after they graduate in this field and consider that yes, it might be good if you are only seeking for general cultural knowledge, but misguided if you intend to find a job based on the skills learned from your studies. How wrong are those ordinary assumptions? And it means that anthropologists still have to raise awareness about what anthropology is and what anthropology can provide to today's societies, and also to explain how we can do this more explicitly outside of academic circles. Us anthropologists have to raise awareness about what anthropology is. I think that I should remind first what is the specificity of humankind. And rightly, the invitation to the celebration of the World Anthropology Day reminds us this beautiful sentence by Ruth Benedict. The purpose of anthropology is to make the world safe for human differences. Yes, that's it. By a deeper understanding of the unicity of mind of humankind beyond the diversity of cultures, of our cultural differences, we contribute in building a safer world, Shanti. And it is not obvious or easy to imagine how deep is a culture, how deeply the humankind is rooted in culture. The German philosopher Hans Cassirer defined man as a symbolic animal. Actually, the humankind lives in a world of symbols culturally built, which weigh on each of us holistically as it compels our minds as well as our bodies. That is notably our perceptions, our senses, our place in society, etc., etc. For instance, it is obvious that language expresses our cultural background, but usually people are less aware that language itself is a symbolic system, and they don't measure the weight of language upon our categories of food that it predetermines. And these cultural categories of foods carried by language compel even our bodily senses. For instance, we know that man can only see the colors that he has culturally learned to see. I would say that the sole awareness of the so deep weight of culture on human shaping is already a great step toward a safer world, and anthropology has already achieved so much from that viewpoint at a global level. Another great achievement of anthropology is that frame was to raise awareness of the importance of each single culture encapsulating within a nation. As you know, for an anthropologist, everything, more or less, is cultural. But in its common acception, culture is still more or less synonymous of cultural heritage, and for centuries the elites only determined what was culture and what was not. Were categorized as culture only the artifacts fitting with a culturally learned taste of these social elites. Oral literature, handicraft, lower classes and tribal knowledge and arts were disconsidered for ages. Anthropology created awareness of the importance and beauty of this knowledge, which have been ignored for too long times by elites because of a culturally built social prejudice. And this element also still has a role to play in building more inclusive societies from within. But, as I have said, I have the feeling this awareness is still not widespread enough within societies. In France, I am amongst the anthropologists who are advocating since years for changes in the high school programs through the introductions of courses in anthropology from the high school, because we are convicted of the importance of sensitizing the whole youth for education and not only our students. It would be so much more important than to teach them Occidental philosophy, which I consider mostly as a rhetorical exercise, that could be an important and beneficent task to undertake for the society, and it will also create new jobs for the graduate student. But until now, this project remains only a project in France. In today's world, the United Nations launched a few years ago at a global level Sustainable Development Goals rooted on 4 pillars, which are planet, population, prosperity, peace. Amongst the critics addressed at the time to the United Nations, one was that the pillars and goals they built had forgotten cultures, while poverty eradication, gender equality, universalization of education, etc., are all cultural topics, and culture also belongs to the common needs of humanity. The United Nations listened to the critics, and the attempt was made to reintroduce culture through the UNESCO, peculiarly through the intangible cultural heritage category of the UNESCO, which, since 2016, inscribes sustainable development in its framework. Thus, the intangible cultural heritage category is now reconceptualized as a tool from which today's world must safeguard the future, learning from the past. And I will explain this later. Why did the United Nations first forget culture? The French psychiatrist Jacques Lacan would have answered, because the most important remains always untold. And what is more important than culture of the whole human mankind is framed body and soul by culture. Obviously, The achievement of the UN Sustainable Development Goals at a global level require the involvement of experts in the field of anthropology, whose expertise is more than ever needed. And, oppositely to the UN, India obviously has not forgotten culture and anthropology in the framework of the Viksit Bharat Programme 2047, launched by the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. You know that the Sankalp Yatra aims at reaching the unreached, reach out to the vulnerable who are eligible under various schemes but have not availed benefit so far. Information and dissemination of information generating awareness about schemes, learning from the citizen, interaction with beneficiaries of government schemes through their personal stories, experience sharing, potential beneficiary enrollment. Isn't it this the core of the anthropological work? And now, through this framework, isn't it the anthropologist who is peculiarly needed to play an active part in the achievement of his program as mediator, expert, whose experience is now required for informing and disseminating his result in, but also out, the frame of academic circle, where it has been confined too long. I am an old woman now. Many jobs of today's world didn't exist 20 years ago. It has been said that 40% of a job in 2040 have not been invited yet. It is not from me, but from the youth, that tomorrow's world has to be a fully sustainable, developed world will be achieved. And this is why, rightly, the voice of the youth is asked by the government of the Republic of India. The government wants to hear youth ideas and perspectives. It wants to listen to youth creativity for national development projects. From today, youth is invited to contribute to the making of tomorrow's world. And the old women will end her speech speaking about the history of anthropology and about some of the damages caused by the unsustainable development that she has experienced in Europe since her childhood. Daniel Fabre, who was a French anthropologist of the end of the 20th century and of the two first decades of the 21st century, said apocalypse, that is a word naming the theories about the end of the world, could be a paradigm for anthropology since its beginning. Anthropology was born at the end of the 19th century mostly as the science whose goal is to study foreign preliterate cultures. The study of the works of the first anthropologists, these of that time, are evidencing their feeling of a double apocalypse, of a double end of the world. From one side, they contemplated the destruction of the cultures they were studying as a result of a growing occidentalization out of Occident. From the other side, they contemplated their own society, which was dying too, through the speed of the development process in the 19th century. The world they were born in was dead, the world they studied was dying. The double vertigo they were feeling led them to urge to the preservation of subaltern cultures, of living world cultural heritage treasures. The question of how to preserve living cultural heritage, as it is living, is an epistemological question for the anthropologist. As per essence, a living society evolves continually. This question reached a new step when the UNESCO labeled a new cultural heritage category, the Intangible Cultural Heritage 1. The first real innovation of this intangible category is the official complete reversal of its identification process. It is established as intangible cultural heritage element, only elements that are first identified as such by its own members and no longer by social elites. This was created in 2003, not that long ago, but that's important. And I want to discuss here an important intrinsical practical problem tied to this process reversal, which is that there is not enough diffusion of information and training in most societies about how to inscribe one element of its intangible cultural heritage on the national inventory. We don't know how to do. They intend people to do it, but they are not trained in doing this. The second innovation is a complete shifting of the primary goal of a cultural heritage recognition, moving from the concept of conservation to the one of safeguard. This came originally from the difficulty to apply the vocabulary used for the artifacts. You can conserve a monument or a painting, but it is not possible to conserve a living heritage. It is obviously more adapted to say that you are safeguarding a living heritage. But as I told, the cultural tool involved in its sustainable development, As I told you, since 2016, the intangible cultural heritage category is considered by the UN as the cultural tool involved in its sustainable development program. This changing goal is not yet completely clear for most of the people, but it is evidenced through its operational instruction, plus the creation of a new UNESCO chair entitled Intangible Cultural Heritage and Sustainable Development, which is dedicated to this study. The requirement to evidence that the intangible cultural heritage elements fit with sustainable development goals in the form submitted, the gradual inscription on the cultural heritage list of the UNESCO of elements considered as practices that can be used in the frame of the sustainable development programs such as traditional irrigation, dry stone building, mountaineering. Intangible cultural heritage is now oriented toward future in the UNESCO vision. Intangible cultural heritage must learn us today how ancient knowledge can help us to safeguard the planet tomorrow. India has 15 elements inscribed on the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage. This UNESCO figure is so far from the extraordinary wealth of India regarding intangible cultural heritage, which is innumerable. And I must say that I'm very happy that France and India have so good relationship. And I think it's a great honor for France to have been invited by your Honorable Prime Minister to cooperate with India regarding cultural heritage. But we have so much to learn from India in that domain. As I was speaking about UNESCO policies of safeguarding ancient knowledge with sustainable development goals, I would like to speak briefly about yoga, inscribed in 2016 on the UNESCO list, and to witness personally of its invaluable importance for health and well-being, which are goals of the Sustainable Development Program of the UN. 25 years ago, I faced a serious health problem, and European medical doctors told me then that I was compelled to have an important surgery. I had heard about the healing of that dysfunction by yoga practice, The medical doctors knew about it, but nonetheless refuted to consider this option. I decided to take time and started classes of Shivananda Yoga. 3 months later, I went back to see a medical doctor who checked the dysfunction by echography. Everything was perfectly normal then and since. And I won't speak here about the so many mental benefits of a yoga practice in daily life. Today, some medical doctors and even psychiatrists in Europe consider that yoga has an important role to play in the therapeutical process, but they are still few. And in Europe, if the practice of yoga is more and more widespread, most of the time it is limited to the sole practice of asana, which is only one of the 8 angas of yoga. And it is the same with Ayurveda. A friend of mine who is Indian and moved in France, where she practices fruit reflexology mixed with Ayurveda, told me several times that she didn't know any Europeans who were practicing Ayurveda properly. I have the feeling that I grew up in an Europe which mostly, until recently, was going always forward on the way on unsustainable development that led planet on fire. I will quote here only a few items. For instance, mass consumption was such that it could be more expensive to repair than to buy new. Women gained only at the end of the 60s, not so long ago, the right to work and to open a bank account without asking their husband's permission. But gender inequality remained in the mind, and they also had, and still have for most of them, childcare and household responsibilities after their daily work. Processed food was always more and more present in daily life, while we know now that it can induce several diseases and increases the cancer rate. In the 80s, when biological food and shops started, it was not trendy at all, and it was really very much disconsidered to shop there. And if you were a vegetarian, you were ordinarily considered as a little crazy or mentally disabled. Some people could also be very preachy, trying to warn you of the great dangers of vegetarian diet. And they were sincere, because of a lack of nutrition education in that field. They had been taught that only meat had the proteins with all the essential amino acids. I am a vegetarian since 35 years, and I've seen a real turning point in France about the attitude toward vegetarianism just a few years ago. The harm of meat consumption of human health had been evident since long, but it had no impact. It came when the impact of mass meat consumption on climate change was taken into account by French policies, and this led to an awareness campaign followed by food industry. But the question of the nutritional value of these industrial vegetable meat substitutes can be raised, as well as the one of the real impact of this awareness campaign in France upon concrete daily dietary practices. Further, my feeling is that a sustainable vegetarian nutrition education would be still most welcome in France. I will finally say one word of a cause peculiarly dear to me: elderly citizen well-being and support. Their population is planned to increase so much within the next decades, and unfortunately growing development has been synonymous in France of an increasing isolation of this so vulnerable population. Even if today the French government advocates in favor of keeping the elderly citizens, with decreasing independency in their home instead of housing them in specialized institutions. There is really so much to do in France for achieving this purpose, given the cost of family carers and the high taxes to pay to the government. Only wealthy people can afford it. It means a very few percentage of the population, and the others have to go and live into specialized structures, which are all very expensive too, especially considering the services provided and whose quality depends on how much you can afford. Regarding the people who can't afford at all and who can't stay in their home anymore, it will depend on luck. A law compels the specialized structures to keep a percentage of their beds for people depending on social help, but when the time has come, no one can foretell which one will have one free spot. Having known one of these structures from inside for several years, and it was considered as a rather good one, I must say that I agree totally with Dixit Bharat perspective. It is only learning from the citizen by personal interaction with beneficiaries of government schemes, but also reaching out the vulnerable, potentially eligible, through the personal stories, experience sharing, that the youth will think of and create innovative and inclusive solutions from today for all our tomorrow's vulnerable citizens, including the vulnerable elderly citizens. By 2047, I might be one of them, somewhere on this earth. They could be me, they could be you. What would we like to experience if we were them tomorrow or the day after tomorrow? What do they tell and learn us today from their personal concrete experiences about how development programs could provide solutions fitting to their needs and to tomorrow's world is invaluable. This approach, rooted in case study developed by Dixit Bharat, is a right starting point for thinking about innovative solutions for improving the well-being of all the vulnerable people. And at the academic level, it has been the approach developed solely by anthropology since its beginning. Young anthropologists do have an essential role to play in the achievement of Dixit Bharat 2047, I think. Thank you so much once again for having come, for your kind attention. I do hope that I haven't been speaking too long, and if you have any question, of course, please ask. Thank you.
Specifying how India's intangible cultural heritage elements have contributed or has the potential to contribute for devising a sustainable future for not only India, for the whole world. Thank you for an enlightening speech, ma'am. And we shall carry upon this message in our thoughts and in our further research. Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Senior Professor Chandrika, Madam, to deliver the felicitation address.
Distinguished guest speaker of today, Professor Claudine Gauthier, and Director of Culture and Cultural Relations, Professor Clement Lourdes, respected Head of the Department of Sociology, Dr. Valerie Dacker, and Professor Jesuratnam, and guests and also students and research scholars of the Department of Anthropology. First, I would like to felicitate this department and the team headed by Dr. Valerie to celebrate this World Anthropology Day. I think this is the first time you are doing it in this department. And I also appreciate the effort that has been made by all our scholars and students to have this art. Whenever we are turning around, we see this art and see how art unites. Our artist Professor Clement was talking about so many other things, and he is a very eloquent professor, and he has been able to make connections between literature and anthropology. And today, the need for having such days, I was thinking, it makes us contemplate. And I was contemplating from the field of history. I was thinking about a particular professor of anthropology from the United States, that is Bernard Escon. He was one of the anthropologists to visit India, and he has also written many books. Colonialism and its forms of knowledge, we know about it, and also an anthropologist among historians and other essays. You may find this book in our library. And he talks about the territory of the historian and the land of anthropology. Now, what connects is when it comes to methodology, you may find that anthropology is using a different method, or history is using a different method, literature using different method. But when it comes to knowledge, I feel that the territorial boundaries of such disciplines fade away and knowledge becomes one. And today our Professor Gauthier, she has highlighted what anthropology can contribute to world future. And coming from the European background, from the land of very important anthropologists, we have Claude Lévi-Strauss, then Lucien Lévy-Bruhl, and also from history discipline we have the social anthropologist Emmanuel Levallois, and she has that wisdom coming from Europe, how the world has been traveling towards sustainable development. And so she has stressed upon the importance of sustainable development, and also she has been able to create an intersection between India and such sustainable development. And I really appreciate a very relevant keynote that you have given today. And so I just wanted to felicitate the day that you have celebrated, which has made us all contemplate. And I would say 3 key words. One is refresh. Refresh our memories about the contribution of anthropologists to knowledge. Then we have reiterate, because all these anthropologists had some objectives and goals, and let us reiterate those objectives and goals, and also rethink anthropology. So with these 3 words, let me just, because I didn't want to speak in the beginning for 2 reasons. One is that I want to listen, I want to learn, so I wanted to be on the other side. And another thing is, after a certain age, we all become fond of speaking a lot, and I didn't want to stand between you and the lecture that she had come to deliver. So this is just for felicitating the department and the team that has worked to make this day a success. Thank you so much.
Now we have a cultural performance by Nishita and Uma Shruti.
Krishna ముత్తుగారే యశోద ముంగిట ముచ్చము వీడు ఇద్దరాని మహిమాల దేవకీ సోతోడు ముత్తుగారే యశోద ముంగిట ముచ్చము వీడు ముత్తుగారే యశోద ముంగిట ముచ్చము వీడు ఇద్దరాని మహిమాల దేవకీ సోతోడు ముత్తుగారే యశోద ముంగిట ముచ్చము వీడు
have come to the end of this World Anthropology Day celebrations. Greetings to everyone who has mastered the art of patience, for your mindfulness already speaks the success of this event. I stand before you today overwhelmed with gratitude as we come to the end of this Anthropology Day celebrations. I extend a heartfelt thank you to all those who have contributed for making this event a grand success. First and foremost, I have the responsibility to lend our deepest appreciation to our esteemed guest, Professor Claudine Gauthier, whose valuable time and efforts to make this community of future anthropologists enlighten, inspire through the spheres of humanity has paid in a greater contribution for this event. Your insight on how anthropology has been ignored by the elites for so long and how it needs to get further through education to create prosperity and peace in the world would be taken by each one of us, and we will be put that into practice now. And it always takes a moment of realization for anyone to to appreciate what we have for ourselves. So your note on Ayurveda and yoga, which is very Indian, had given us all a realization of what we have, and we ensure that we will have it among us for the sustainable development of the world. And it is really an honor to have you among us today, ma'am. I would like to show our genuine gratitude to the Director of Culture and Cultural Relations, Professor Clement S. Lourdes, who has given us his gracious presence for the event. And we thank the University admin for lending their great support. A special thanks to our Head of the Department, Dr. Verdi Decker, and our esteemed faculty members, without whom the event wouldn't have gotten its path to engulf. I also thank Professor Chandrika, our senior professor from the School of Social Sciences, who has shared her valuable words and spent her valuable time amongst us. Last but not the least, those people who work behind the scenes are the roots that are embedded, for they have contributed to the growth of this tree, that is the Department of Anthropology. The students and scholars acting as the organizers of the event, without whom this celebration would have been fragmentary. So I thank all the other department professors for spending their valuable time and joining us for this occasion. A heartfelt thanks to those who supported with the technical settings, the EMRC and the ACCAs for their extra super arrangement before the event. And in conclusion, I would like to thank each and everyone for being a great audience. Your support and enthusiasm made this event a great success. I'm hoping to have you all amongst the future events that we are going to have with the same energy. Thank you.